Shalom, YouTube. I hope you're all excited for Passover. Remember that Jesus died on the 14th of Nisan, which is the day that the goat or the sheep is sacrificed, which has been done ever since the days of Moses. About 1500 years before Christ, they sacrificed a sheep or a goat for the Passover, and they put the blood on the frame of the door, and they ate the goat or the sheep with bitter herbs and unleavened bread. They would eat the unleavened bread for 7 days. You can read all the rules about this in Exodus chapter 12, but the point being here is that the 14th of Nisan, the first day of the Passover, you eat the sheep or the goat. The lamb is killed and you eat it on the 14th of Nisan. Jesus ate the lamb on the 14th of Nisan with his disciples. They killed the Passover lamb. The word lamb is not included in the King James Bible, but they killed the Passover in Luke 22, him and the disciples. So on the 14th of Nisan, because it goes from night, is when the day begins. And Jesus died on 14 Nisan. After the sunset, it was 14 Nisan, and he died on the cross before the next sunset. Jesus was the Passover lamb. He died on the cross, just like Moses received to kill the Passover lamb 1,500 years before Christ. So Passover is the 22nd of April is when it begins. It's 7 days long. Every single day you're supposed to eat unleavened bread. On the first day you eat a lamb or a sheep with bitter herbs. And this is very important for the religion, to not keep the Passover as a sin. So remember, Jesus died on 14 Nisan and he rose again on 16 Nisan. That's not what this video is about. This video is about Islam and how it is a Edomite religion, meaning it is hostile to Judaism from its very nature. It does not come from Ishmael. It comes from Esau. That is why their religion lies about everything in the Bible. They lie about the Garden of Eden. They lie about Isaac being sacrificed. They say Ishmael was the one to be sacrificed. They claim that Abraham, Jesus, and Moses were Muslims. They don't follow the Sabbaths. Everything that the Bible teaches us that we should follow, from the prophets to the Messiah to even the disciples, who were not perfect by any means. The prophets were far superior to the disciples. Islam just throws it all in the garbage and says, no, Muhammad is the only vessel for truth, and he's the only one we're going to listen to. So, Esau marries Hittites. This is where the Amalekite and the Edomite races come from. The Amalekites basically are a very dangerous group who've constantly been at war with the Jews, as well as the Edomites and the Moabites. And this war, you can see the first actual war between Jacob and Esau. It begins 2,000 years before Christ. In the book of Jubilees, chapter 37 and 38, you can read about that. The Hasmonean dynasty, which came about shortly after the wars in the books of Maccabees. The Hasmonean dynasty took the book of Jubilees legitimately, and I think we should as well. So basically the story with Jacob and Esau is that they're twin brothers. Isaac and Rebekah have twin sons. And Esau is the firstborn, but Jacob was holding on to his heel coming out of the womb. And essentially they've been at war their entire lives. Even in the womb they were striving against one another. And Esau should have been the firstborn to receive the firstborn blessing, but Jacob received it. Esau was starving to death in the middle of a famine. He was so hungry he sold his birthright to Jacob for some soup and some bread. And Jacob deceived his father to receive Esau's blessing. This was his mother's idea. Obviously, deception is a sin. However, in context, Esau did not deserve the birthright if he's going to be marrying Canaanites and selling his birthright anyways to become a heathen. So after this, Esau wanted to kill Jacob, and Jacob essentially, he had to flee to his uncle, and that's where he met Leah and Rachel, his future wives. And when he came back, Esau at first wanted to murder him, and he brought a huge military battalion with him. But Jacob prayed, and God softened Esau's heart. So that's essentially the story as Genesis teaches it. However, the book of Jubilees adds more context. For some reason, the book of Jubilees the book of Genesis lacks a lot of context. For example, you don't really hear about the book of Enoch. You don't hear about the book of Jubilees. There's many things that happened that are not properly recorded in the book of Genesis, which leads me to believe that Genesis is a copy of an earlier text, which I would take to be the book of Jubilees. Jubilees covers from Adam and Eve all the way to basically Exodus, where God is speaking to Moses on the mountain, telling him the whole history. So, this story with Jacob and Esau is very important. Esau has to be subservient to Jacob, and essentially they've been at war for a very long time. So, one of the first wars in the Bible between Jacob and Esau. Well, it's not even in the Bible, it's in Jubilees, but you can see in the book of Judith all the chieftains of the people of Esau and all the leaders of the Moabites, which is the lineage of Lot and his daughters. The Muslims deny that Lot had children with his daughters. The Quran doesn't talk about the Moabites, doesn't talk about the Edomites, it doesn't talk about anything. The Quran is a complete corruption of the Bible. Everything that the Bible teaches, the Quran twists it. And this is not an accident. Islam is the Antichrist religion. They are against the law of Moses. They are against Israel. They are against the Gospels. They are against the divinity of Jesus. They are the enemy of God. They are choosing to fight against God, and they will lose, just like the Romans lost, just like the Greeks lost, just like the Babylonians lost. Every single country that lays a hand against Israel is destroyed. So in the book of Judith, what happens is this Moabite is advising the Assyrians on how to destroy Israel. And basically, they all want to go to war and destroy Israel because that's what they do. In the book of Maccabees, you can see it happening again. The Edomites of Idumea are waging war against Israel along with the Moabites, the Philistines. Like everybody every time Israel is weak, all of her enemies come out of the woodwork and go to war. And these enemies it's the same groups over and over again. It's the Philistines, which is basically the Palestinians of Gaza, Ekron, Ashkelon, Ashdod. There's 5 cities in and around Gaza, and these are the Philistines, which is the Palestinians essentially. The Arabic word for Palestine is Philistine. So the Philistines of Gaza, the Moabites and the Ammonites of Lot's incest children, the Edomites and the Amalekites, which come from Esau, and the Chittim of Cyprus, which is where Alexander the Great comes from. So we see this constant war against Israel by these groups, and it just happens over and over again. It almost happened in the book of Esther, where they wanted to exterminate the Jews through Haman. Haman wanted to exterminate the Jews. Well, Haman was an Agagite, which means he comes from Agag, the king of Amalek. And in the Apocrypha Esther, it says that he is also a Macedonian. So that's very interesting. The Persians did not want to exterminate the Jews. It was this Agagite, this Macedonian, who did. So we see this constant war against Esau. God really hates Esau. This has to be understood. God hates the lineage of Esau. So these people need to surrender to the Torah, surrender to the Gospels, or they will be destroyed in the end. Everybody who raises a hand against Israel, against Judaism, against Christianity, you're fighting against God. And God he is patient and undefeated. So you can read a bunch of these verses about it if you want to pause and look into it. I have hated Esau. I have laid waste his hill country and left his heritage to jackals of the desert. As it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. So this conflict, it goes back a very long time. Islam does not come from Ishmael. Islam comes from Esau. All these, Esau was Esau had very mighty lineages. And these lineages were always at war, and they lived by the sword, and they died by the sword. And they have always hated Israel. They've always tried to destroy Israel when it was weak. And once Israel left Egypt, Moses sang a song about how the chiefs of Edom are dismayed, the leaders of Moab trembling seizes them, all the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. And it even talks about Palestine. The people of Palestine will tremble with fear. Why? Because that land was inhabited by completely wicked people, and they saw all these miracles that God did for the Jews, and they knew that God was going to judge them. However, the Jews refused to obey the law of Moses, so things went badly for them. So the Edomites have never been brotherly to their cousins, the Jews. They've always been hostile towards them, such as when they were crossing, and they asked the Edomites to allow them to cross, and the Edomites said, "No, or we will kill you. You shall not pass through lest I come out with a sword against you." But he said, "You shall not pass through." And Edom came out against them with many men and with a strong force. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his territory, so Israel turned away from him. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor on the border of the land of Edom. From Mount Hor. So anyway, let's just get back to it. So they've always been hostile. This has constantly been happening, and I just want to get into. Unfortunately, Solomon married the daughter of Pharaoh, and Moabites, and Ammonites, and Edomites, and Sidonians, which is Lebanese, and Hittite women. So Solomon was marrying all these people who were hostile towards Judaism. And this is a very big problem. So you can just kind of scroll through these, pause at your own timing. But I really wanted to get into Jubilees 37 and 38. That was the main point of this video. So the books of Maccabees are very important because of how recent it is in the Bible, how well documented it is. This is where basically they tried to exterminate Israel, exterminate Judaism, exterminate everything related to Israel. I mean, they really, really tried. And Israel survived because it's ordained by God, but it was a very hostile conflict. Everybody tried to destroy Israel, and it failed. And this is going to keep happening until the Jews return to the law of Moses. Read the book of Deuteronomy. If you're a Christian, guess what? You're a Jew. All Christians are actually Jewish converts. And if you refuse to keep the law of Moses, essentially what you are is you're a bad Jew. So here's some hadiths from Islam. Sahih al-Bukhari 3453, 3454. On his deathbed, Allah's messenger Muhammad put a sheet over his face, and when he felt hot, he would remove it from his face. When in that state of putting and removing the sheet, he said, "May Allah's curse be upon the Jews and the Christians, for they build houses of places of worship at the graves of their prophets." By that, he intended to warn the Muslim from what they, i.e. Jews and Christians, had done. So, first of all, anybody who curses the Jews, curses Israel, they are cursed by God. This is a promise God made to Abraham. I believe it's in Genesis chapter 12. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And this blessing and this curse is again seen with the prophet Balaam, son of Beor. So, and that's in Numbers 23, 24. Somewhere around there, Numbers 23, Numbers 24. And yeah, essentially you can't fight Israel. Israel only falls because they disobey God. But if they're faithful to the Torah, Israel is forever. But here we see the false prophet of Islam cursing the Jews and the Christians. We Christians never did this stuff. Yes, there were many heretical Jews. They didn't want to follow the law of Moses. They are Jews in blood, but not in deed. And they did slay many prophets. But to curse the Christians, it's like, what have we done? What have the Christians done that we deserve to be cursed? So Islam is the Amalekite Edomite religion of the Antichrist. They are enemies of the people of the Bible. Here we can see in the battle, the Jewish tribe Banu Qurayza was completely exterminated by Muhammad. Muhammad was very hostile to the Jews of Arabia. He first pretended to be a prophet. He pretended to be their friend. Once they realized he wasn't a prophet, then he ethnically cleansed them from their lands. And the first two tribes, he expelled them. And the third tribe, he slaughtered all the men, and he took the women and children as slaves. Muhammad took this advice, and as a consequence, between 400 and 900 male prisoners of the tribe, including any boys showing signs of puberty, were beheaded, many in front of their families, and the rest of the tribe were taken or sold into slavery. This event is well attested to in the Islamic historical tradition and has served as the basis for multiple rulings throughout history dealing with the treatment of captured non-Muslims by Muslim military forces. So this is how Muslims feel about when they capture a village of non-Muslims. They will kill the men and they will take the women and children and sell them into slavery. That's Islam. This has to be understood that this religion is from Satan. They do not worship the God of Moses. They do not worship the Father of Jesus. They are against the law of Moses. They are against the Gospels. Hamas, ISIS, it is the true face of Islam, and they will never stop until Armageddon because they are the lineage of Esau. They want to destroy Israel. That's why they built a mosque over Solomon's temple. And you think that they will ever give back control of Jerusalem? Do you honestly think they will ever allow the third temple to be built? They will fight a bloody global jihad if they ever felt like they were going to lose Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, the Jews and the Christians who believe the Bible believe that the glory of God will remain in Jerusalem forever, that Solomon's temple has the glory of God forever, and when they rebuild the temple, right there, God's blessing will be upon that land again. All they have to do is rededicate the temple like they did in the days of Moses, in the days of Maccabees, with the burnt sacrifices, and rebuild the temple, and it's all going to be like it was in the days of Moses. That's what the Jews and the Christians believe, if you believe the Bible literally. The Muslims believe that the glory of God left Jerusalem and went to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. But if that's true, why do they care about Jerusalem? Why do they still want to control Solomon's temple? Because they are the Edomites. They are the enemies of Israel. From the very beginning, they have been an enemy of Israel, and the ones at the top know this. Islam is a mystery religion. It is not what they think it is if they're at the lower levels. The true face of Islam is Sufism. It's Hubal worship. It's Baal. Their god is Baal, and they are the enemies of Israel, and they will never stop until Armageddon. Another hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari 29:26. Allah's messenger said, "The hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew is hiding will say, 'O Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him.'" So this is one hadith from al-Bukhari 29:26. Here's another one, Sahih Muslim 29:22. The last hour would not come unless the Muslims would fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and a stone or a tree would say, "Muslim, or the servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." But the tree Garkad would not say, for it is the tree of the Jews. Another one, Sahih Muslim 29:21. You and the Jews would fight against one another until a stone would say, "Muslim, here is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." These are 3 or 4 different hadiths about this exact same thing. Another one from Bukhari 29:25. Allah's messenger said, i.e. Muslims will fight with the Jews until some of them will hide behind stones. The stones will betray them, saying, "O Abdullah, i.e. slave of Allah, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so come kill him." This is what they believe. I can't believe Israel allows Muslims to live in their country. If Israel really was, Israel's not really Israel. Israel's like a mixed bag. That's why they have that hexagram on their flag. If Israel was serious about Israel, they would just be like, okay, the book of Deuteronomy is the law of the land. The Torah is the law of the land. Anything that contradicts the law of Moses is illegal. And we will follow the law of Moses because we need it for our very survival. That is what Israel should be. But Israel's a mixed bag. Israel's got all kinds of interests competing, and the only way Israel's going to properly survive is if they take the law of Moses literally, which is going to be very difficult for them. But yes, Israel should be a Torah theocracy. Everything that goes against the Torah should be illegal, including Islam. And if it causes a bunch of Muslims to be angry, well, you know what? That's what they get for Hamas. That's what they get for October 7th. That's what they get for every single thing they have ever done against the Jews, even going back to the days of Muhammad. Islam is incompatible with Judaism, and they cannot live peacefully one with another because this is Jacob and Esau all over again. Allah's messenger said, "By him in whose hands my soul is, surely Esau," because it's not Jesus, "surely Esau the son of Miriam will soon descend amongst you and will judge mankind justly as a just ruler. He will break the cross." Their Jesus, their Esau hates the cross. They don't believe Jesus was crucified. They don't believe he's the Son of God. They don't believe he rose again. They believe he faked his death, and this is another reason why they are the Antichrist religion. But everybody in those lands knew that Jesus was real, that he did these miracles, so they couldn't say it never happened because the Syrians were aware of it. All the people of the Middle East at that time knew about Jesus and his miracles, so they had to make a new story. And that story is Esau was a Muslim, and he wasn't the Son of God, and the Gospels are corrupt, and the disciples are liars. That's all they believe. So they think he's going to break the cross, kill the pigs, which many people think that this means kill the Jews and the Christians who reject Islam. They think he's going to break the cross and kill the swine, enemies of Islam, and there will be no more jizya, the taxation taken from non-Muslims. Money will be in abundance so that nobody will accept it, and a single prostration to Allah in prayer will be better than the whole world and whatever is in it. Abu Huraira added, "If you wish, you can recite this verse of the Holy Book, and there is none of the people of the scriptures, Jews and Christians, but must believe in him, i.e. Esau is an apostle of Allah and a human being." Well, he was a human being, but he was also the Son of God, as you can read about in the book of Enoch, in the book of Daniel, the book of Isaiah. Many prophets spoke about this in the testaments of the 12 patriarchs, and on the day of judgment, he will be a witness against them. So they think Jesus, their Esau, is going to bear witness against the Jews and the Christians, and he's going to claim to be a Muslim. Well, that's the Antichrist. They are waiting for the false Jesus, the false Messiah. Everything the Islamic beliefs line up with, everything Islam teaches lines up with the Antichrist, it lines up with the Edomites, it lines up with the enemies of Israel going back a very long time. So, Abdullah. So remember, one of these hadiths talks about Abdullah. "O Abdullah, i.e. slave of Allah." Well, Muhammad's father was called Abdullah, and this is before Islam. This is before people knew who Allah was in the sense of Allah is the same God as the God of the Bible. That's what they claim. Well, then why was Abdullah almost a human sacrifice? Who is Allah, If Allah wants human sacrifices, Allah is Baal. Allah is Hubal. This is a god of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, all these historical enemies of Israel who have. The only way you can fight against Israel is to get them to transgress the law of Moses. That's it. If Israel keeps the law of Moses, you can't touch them. If Christians keep the law of Moses, they're perfect. So you got to keep them away from their burnt sacrifices. You got to keep them away from their Sabbaths. You got to keep them away from their chastity. Everything that the law of Moses teaches, the only way that the Edomites can fight against the Jews is to get them to transgress the Torah. It's very simple. So Abdullah, slave of Allah, father of Muhammad, was about to be a human sacrifice by his father. And in some versions of the story, he was going to sacrifice him to Allah at the Kaaba. In some versions of the story, he's going to sacrifice him to Hubal of the Kaaba. Well, Hubal and Allah are the same God, and it's not a Midianite God. It's a God that was brought from another land. People think it came from the land of Hit, and I believe it was in Syria, which is once again a land of the Moabites and the Ammonites. Excuse me, not Syria. No, Syria was not Moabites, Ammonites. Syria was um, which one was it? Well, Syria was anyway. The point being is all these nations have been enemies of the Jews for a long time. Only way Israel can win this war is strict obedience to the Torah, and that means accepting that the Muslims are Edomites. Islam is the Antichrist religion. They are enemies of the Jews, enemies of the Christians, enemies of the Bible, enemies of Israel, enemies of Solomon's temple, enemies of Yahweh, and they will never stop. So let's get into the Book of Jubilees. So I highly recommend you look into getting the Book of Jubilees, downloading it, audiobook, whatever. But Esau's sons reproach him for his subordination to Jacob and constrain him to war with the assistance of 4,000 mercenaries against Jacob. 1 through 15. Jacob reproves Esau 16 through 17. Esau's reply 18 through 25. And on that day that Isaac, the father of Jacob, and Esau died, 21:62 a.m., which I believe means after creation. See, the Book of Jubilees, it breaks down the timetable of everything leading up to Moses. So every Jubilee is either 49 or 50 years. Anyway, the sons of Esau heard that Isaac had given the portion of the elder to his younger son Jacob, and they were very angry. They strove with their father, saying, "Why has your father given Jacob the portion of the elder and passed over you, although you are the elder and Jacob the younger?" And he said unto them, "Because I sold my birthright to Jacob for a small mess of lentils, and on the day that my father sent me to hunt and catch and bring him something that he should eat and bless me, he came with guile and brought my father food and drink, and my father blessed him and put me under his hand. And now our father has caused me to swear, me and him, that we shall not mutually devise evil, either against his brother, and that we shall continue in love and in peace each with his brother, and not make our ways corrupt. And they said unto him, We shall not hearken unto you to make peace with him, for our strength is greater than his strength, and we are more powerful than he. We shall go against him and slay him and destroy him and his sons. And if you will not go with us, we shall hurt you also. We shall do hurt to you also. And now hearken unto us. Let us send into Aram. Now Aram was Syria, and Philistia is Gaza, and Moab and Ammon is Jordan. These are the incest children of Lot. And let us choose for ourselves chosen men who are ardent for battle, and let us go against him and do battle with him, and let us exterminate him from the earth before he grows strong. So this is 2,000 years before Christ. Esau is trying to exterminate Jacob's lineage. Israel is not even really a powerful thing. There's no nation of Israel. They're foreigners living in the land of Canaan. They're just following the promises that God made through Abraham. So let us exterminate him from the earth before he grows strong. And their father said unto them, Do not go and do not make war with him unless you fall before him. They said unto him, This too is exactly your mode of action from your youth unto this day, and you are putting your neck under his yoke. We shall not listen to these words. And they sent to Aram and to Aduram, to the friend of their father. And they hired along with them 1,000 fighting men, chosen men of war. And there came to them from Moab and from the children of Ammon those who were hired, 1,000 chosen men, and from Philistia 1,000 chosen men, and from Edom and the Horites 1,000 chosen fighting men, and from the Kittim, which is Cyprus. This is Macedonia. This is where Alexander the Great came from, according to 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. From Kittim, mighty men of war. And they said unto their... So basically all these groups have been at war with Israel ever since 2,000 years before Christ, and they have never stopped. And the only way Israel can win this conflict is strict obedience to the Torah and accepting Jesus Christ as the Messiah. That's it. Those are the only methods. You read the book of Deuteronomy, you do everything the book of Deuteronomy says, and I'm pretty sure Deuteronomy is the entire law. There might be some more pieces in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, but I'm pretty sure Deuteronomy is the entire law, or at least the most important parts of it. Do everything that the Torah teaches and accept Christ as your Messiah. That's how you win. So, from Kits and Mighty Men of War. They said unto their father, Go forth with them and lead them, or else we shall kill you. And he was filled with wrath and indignation on seeing that his sons were forcing him to go before them to lead them against Jacob his brother. But afterward he remembered all the evil which lay hidden in his heart against Jacob his brother, and he remembered not the oath which he had sworn to his father and to his mother, that he would not devise evil all his days against Jacob his brother. And notwithstanding all this, Jacob knew not that they were coming against him to battle, and he was mourning for Leah his wife, until they approached very near to the tower with 4,000 warriors and chosen men of war. And the men of Hebron sent to him, saying, Behold, your brother has come against you to fight you, with 4,000 girt with the sword, and they carry shields and weapons. For they loved Jacob more than Esau. So they told him, for Jacob was a more liberal and merciful man than Esau. But Jacob would not believe until they came very near to the tower. And he closed the gates of the tower, and he stood at the battlements, and spake to his brother Esau, and said, Noble is the comfort wherewith you have come to comfort me for my wife who has died. Is this the oath that you did swear to your father and again to your mother before they died? You have broken the oath, and on the moment that you did swear to your father, you were condemned. And then Esau answered and said unto him, Neither the children of men nor the beasts of the earth have any oath of righteousness, which in swearing they have sworn an oath valid forever. But every day they devise evil one against another, and how they each may slay his adversary and foe. And you do hate me and my children forever, and there is no observing the tie of brotherhood with you. Hear these words which I declare unto you. If the boar can change his skin and make its bristles as soft as wool, or if it can cause horns to sprout forth on its head, like the horns of a stag or of a sheep, then I will observe the tie of brotherhood with you. And if the breasts separated themselves from their mother, for you have not been a brother to me. And if the wolves make peace with the lamb so as to not devour them or to do them violence, and if their hearts are toward them for good, then there shall be peace in my heart towards you. And if the lion becomes the friend of the ox and makes peace with him, and if he is bound under one yoke with him and plows with him, then will I make peace with you. And when the raven becomes white as the raza, then know that I have loved you and shall make peace with you. You shall be rooted out, and your son shall be rooted out, and there shall be no peace for you. And when Jacob saw that he was so evilly disposed towards him with his heart, and with all his soul to slay him, and that they had come springing like a wild boar which comes upon the spear that pierces and kills it, and recoils not from it, then he spake to his own and to his servants that they should attack him and all his companions. So, this war began with Esau. Let's never forget this. This is what the Amalekites were doing in Exodus 17. The Jews had just left Egypt, and the Amalekites immediately tried to exterminate Moses and his people. Unprovoked, the Amalekites, which come from Esau, tried to exterminate Israel from the face of the planet. And they keep doing this. They did this in the book of Maccabees. They did this in the book of Esther with Haman. They did this with the Holocaust. They're doing this now with Islam. Every single group that is at war with Israel has been at war with Israel for thousands of years. This is an ancient religious war, and it's about destroying the Bible, destroying Judaism, destroying Christianity, destroying Israel, and destroying God, and replacing God with their pagan Allah. Let's see how this war is going to play out. After that, Judah spake to Jacob his father, Jacob also known as Israel, and said unto him, Bend your bow, father, and send forth your arrows, and cast down the adversary, and slay the enemy. And may thou have the power, for we shall not slay your brother, for he is such as you. And he is not like and he is not like you, and he is like you. Let us give him this honor. All right, let me say that again. We shall not slay your brother, for he is such as you, and he is like you. Let us give him this honor. Okay, so out of respect for Esau, they told Jacob to kill him. Then Jacob bent his bow and sent forth the arrow and struck Esau his brother on his right breast and slew him. And again he sent forth an arrow and struck Adron the Aramaean on the left breast and drove him backward and slew him. So once again, the Aramaeans are Syrians. And then went forth the sons of Jacob, they and their servants, dividing themselves into companies, and the four sides of the tower. And Judah went forth in front, and Naphtali and Gad with him, and 50 servants with him on the south side of the tower. And they slew all they found before them, and not one individual of them escaped. And Levi and Dan and Asher went forth on the east side of the tower, and 50 men with them. And they slew the fighting men of Moab and Ammon, And Reuben and Issachar and Zebulun went forth on the north side of the tower, and 50 men with them, and they slew the fighting men of the Philistines. So remember, Moab and Ammon, these are the bastard children of Lot and his daughters. This is Jordan, and the Philistines are the Palestinians of Gaza. Gaza, Ashdod, Ekron, Ashkelon, and there was one other city. And Simeon and Benjamin and Enoch, Reuben's son, went forth on the west side of the tower, and 50 men with them, and they slew of Edom, which is Idumea, which is near Mount Seir. And of the Horites 400 men, stout warriors, and 600 fled, and 4 of the sons of Esau fled with them, and left their father lying slain, as he had fallen on the hill which is in Aduram. And the sons of Jacob pursued after them to the mountains of Seir, and Jacob buried his brother on the hill which is in Aduram, and he returned to his house. And the sons of Jacob pressed hard upon the sons of Esau on the mountains of Seir, and bowed their necks so that they became servants of the sons of Jacob. They sent to their father to inquire whether they should make peace with them or slay them. And Jacob sent word to his sons that they should make peace, and they made peace with them, and placed the yoke of servitude upon them, so that they paid tribute to Jacob and his sons always. And they continued to pay tribute to Jacob until the day that he went down into Egypt. And the sons of Edom have not quit of the yoke of servitude which the 12 sons of Jacob had imposed on them until this day. And these are the kings that reigned in Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel unto this day in the land of Edom. And Balak the son of Beor. Now, this is different. In the Torah, it says his name is Balaam, son of Beor. Or actually, it says, this is Genesis 36. It says his name is Bela. Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom. I don't know if this is a different Balaam, different Balak, different whatever, but Balak, son of Beor, and Genesis it says Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Danabah. And Balak died, and Jobab, the son of Zerah and Bozer, reigned in his stead, and Jobab died. So you can just kind of, anyway, so this fits into Genesis 36. So it seems like pieces of Genesis are missing. How is this possible? Because in the books of Maccabees, one of the first things that they did is they conquered Israel and they burned all the Jewish literature they could find. Anybody practicing the law of Moses was exterminated. Anybody who refused to eat pork was put to death, tortured, and then put to death. This is the Antichrist religion. Yes, Islam appears to be Judaism because they circumcise, because they don't eat pork, because they believe in one God, because they believe in Moses, because they believe in Jesus. But when you actually, if you look into what they actually teach, you can see it's a corruption. And that's how Satan operates. He takes the truth and he twists it and he gives you a false version of the truth that looks like the truth, but is not rooted in the truth. And the truth is that Moses and Jesus both said to keep the law of Moses forever. Moses said, keep the law of Moses until forever. And Jesus said, until heaven and earth passes away, we must keep the entire law of Moses. So heaven and earth will pass away. And then we don't have to keep the law of Moses because we will be perfected. Until then, we are bound to the yoke of the Torah. As Christians and Jews, we must keep the law of Moses in full, read the book of Deuteronomy, and obey Yahweh. Islam is the Antichrist religion. They are Edomites. There will never be peace between Jacob and Esau until Armageddon. And this is what we must understand. There's only 2 ways to fight against Esau. Number 1, keep the law of Moses. Number 2, obey Christ. Christ is king. He is the king of the Jews. He is the God of Israel in the flesh. And he told us to keep the law of Moses until heaven and earth passes away. You can read more about the Messiah in Daniel and in Isaiah and in Zechariah and in some of the Psalms and in the book of Enoch.